Hello and welcome to Ecuador, one of South America's greatest green destinations. Today we explore the areas from Quito to Cuyabeno Reserve. These areas are some of Ecuador's most famous. In Quito, the capital of Ecuador, there is a lot of fancy cities. There is a lot of statues and architecture. There is also a historic part. In a desert filled with aloe vera and other types of agave, you can also find the Center of the World Monument. This is one of the most famous features of Ecuador since it lies right on the equator, or middle of the world. In fact, that's what Quito means, middle of the world. You will also find a historic part of Quito filled with amazing architecture. Overlooked by this statue of the Virgin Mary, also known as the Virgin of Quito, there is abundance of churches and religious sites. There are two giant churches that you'll find in Quito, and you'll also find multiple other religious areas. There's also some temples and mosques and synagogues as well. And the main religion is Roman Catholic. Now, the national bird of Ecuador is the hummingbird, specifically a type called puff birds because they have puffs of feathers on their legs. Jose Cotocachi is one of the most famous makers of quilts and one of the most famous weavers in all of Ecuador. Andean corn is one of the materials he uses to color his fabrics. As you go higher in elevation, the corn actually is a darker purple color compared to the yellow at lower elevations. This is cochineal. It is a type of parasitic beetle that lives on cacti. Here we will see how they use cochineal and other natural materials to make dye. Now, the cochineal beetle is actually very little color on the outside, but when the beetle is crushed, the insides actually combine to make a light purplish reddish color. As you can see here, this beetle is actually filled with this type of liquid. This liquid is also used to make carmine, an ingredient found in many lipsticks. As you can see, normally it's dark red, which you can use to make dark red yarn. Also, you can mix with multiple different natural materials, like lime juice. Lime juice will actually turn it a lighter reddish color. And there are many other materials you can mix it with, such as baking soda, and there's also snail shells and all other things that you can mix it with. Here we have some ash, because Ecuador is famous for volcanoes such as Cotopaxi, and that actually makes the yarn a purplish color, light purplish. Now, there are many materials you can mix with this. Some baking soda actually turns it a different color as well, and baking soda is actually made out of snails down there. You can see that turns it to a darker purple color. But there's many materials you can mix it with, and you can create almost any color you can imagine with it. Now, besides the modern day Quito, there's also many natives in Quito. In fact, the second language of Ecuador is actually the native language, besides Spanish, which is the first language. Many artifacts, Incan artifacts, and other civilizations' artifacts have been found. These are some of the early artifacts, and since it's near volcanoes, they often use obsidian, this material, which is a volcanic glass. They used it as a mirror. Now, here you can see this pot. We're not really sure how people have made it into this geometric shape, but they did. We know they were excellent metalsmiths, though, working with gold, platinum, and silver. Now, Quito also has a lot of natural sites before you even get into the Amazon part. Here you can see a volcanic crater lake, and there was lots of birds and some bugs, like this Andean coot, which is a bird, but there is no fish in this lake because it is too acidic of a pH. There's large bees pollinating flowers down there as well. This is a prime example of how, no matter where you go in the world, you will find life, in the bustling city of Quito, and even in some of the harshest environments on Earth. Now on to Cuyabeno Lodge. Before you get there, we did some exploring of this plant around the mouth of the river. This is cacao. It's used to make coffee and chocolate. Chocolate is one of the main exports of Ecuador along with coffee, and as does roses and some other types of plant material. They also export petroleum from Ecuador as well, which is one of the largest exports. It is the largest export. Now, to get to our reserve, you have to travel along a river called the Napo. It's a tributary of the Amazon. The Amazon River is one of the widest in the world and one of the biggest, second only to the Nile River. Now, this river is very unique. As you travel along the beginning, as you could see, it was a brownish color. But as you reach where we stayed at Laguna Grande, it's actually turning into a blackish color. This is all because of sediments. Along the Napo River, some of the leaves actually play a role too. Now, here you can see lots of wildlife just along the river. Like above in that tree, those are oropendula nests, a type of bird that actually weaves one nest each year, and that's where they lay their eggs. A lot of the area has bugs, including this one here. It's a blue morpho, the largest butterfly in the world, easily identified by its splendid blue color. Now, you can see animals along the river, but some animals are more unique. This is a squirrel monkey. Squirrel monkeys are very energetic monkeys, one of 9 species found in this area of the world. There's also the only monkey we did not see is the pocket monkey, which is a very small monkey. There is also woolly monkeys, howler monkeys, and many other species of monkeys in the area that we will talk about in a bit. Now, driving along the Napo River is very unique. You can see lots of creatures, but it's also a very enjoyable ride as well. Sometimes you can go fast depending on where you are, but it's very easy to get lost as the river is very big. When you get around towards the lodge, you can see the water is a lot darker in color around here, because this is Laguna Grande, and it's actually colored by a darker sediment than at the beginning of the tributary. You'll know you're getting close to the lodge when you see a sign in the middle of the lake that points it out. But that's not really on land. This is a sign you can see on the land when you reach there. Cuyabeno is a natural reserve and has many creatures, including this tree boa we saw one night. Tree boas are nocturnal predators, and you'll see them often at night hunting for small animals. This one we found out on the lake. It's possibly hunting birds or other species of small animals. The tree boa is non-venomous. It's different than a boa constrictor. They're closely related. They're called columbrids, which is the non-venomous snakes. And these ones have an excellent green coloring for camouflage. They almost look prehistoric. And another prehistoric looking creature is called the caiman. The caiman is a species of crocodilian. You can find them by their eyeshine, and each species have a different reflective eyeshine. This is the black caiman. These are one of the larger species. There's also white caiman and spectacled caiman in the area. And the largest species of black caiman growing to about 6 feet long at maximum. And for a crocodilian, they're quite large. The main difference between these guys and alligators is the caiman actually has a larger overbite than the alligators. They're kind of a mix between crocodiles and alligators with features, and the caiman is actually one of the most primitive species you'll find in Cuyabeno Lodge. They haven't changed for many, many years, and they actually can be quite dangerous if you're not careful. And there are many reports of caimans actually killing people in other parts of the Amazon. Now, the caimans aren't really that much to fear because they'll try to swim away before they actually try to get you. Now, there's also other species of reptiles and amphibians, such as this toad we saw one night. This is a very big species of toad, and as you can see, there actually are many species of toads, but a lot of them are actually small. Happens to be a big example. They actually like to blend in with the leaf layer of the toads. The frogs are often more colorful than the toads, such as the poison arrow frogs, which we'll see later. These guys are very dull in color. They usually like to blend in, and they're more of a night species, so you won't really need color for anything. Now, these guys are very unique. Next, we have a creature called the putu. It's also known as a nightjar. This is actually a species of bird, and it's very well camouflaged. At first, you might not see it. It's one of the hardest creatures to spot in the Amazon. Now, these guys have a lot of mythology surrounding them, and they are very unique and have a very unique call that they only use on the full moon. Now, this is an anhinga, a species of bird that the natives call snake bird after their long neck in the water that usually sticks up, it looks like a snake. These birds are often found in the southern part of the United States as well, and basically down from there. Now, these birds are very common. They're actually one of the most common birds found in this region. You can see them almost every time you go on the river. They're related to cormorants, which can also be found in the area, as well as the Galapagos Islands, which also belongs to Ecuador. But that is off the coast. Ecuador has three main regions: the coast, the Andes, the Galapagos is a separate region, and then they have the Amazon. This is a squirrel monkey. There's a lot of squirrel monkeys we saw. They're very fast and agile monkeys, and they're very energetic. You can often see them jumping from tree to tree. They're just a big bundle of energy, and they're actually one of my favorites to observe because they're actually kind of cute, I think. Now, the squirrel monkeys have very long tails. They don't really use them that much besides for balance. The howler monkeys use their tail. It's prehensile. They actually use it more than these guys. 3 out of the 9 monkeys use their tail. This is one of them. This is the tamarin. These tamarins are not often cited as the squirrel monkeys, which are the most common. Our last monkey that we actually saw was the howler monkey, which is often seen quicker than these guys. And one thing I've noticed about the monkeys are they're always eating. No matter where you see them, they're always seem to be eating or foraging for food. They have to keep their energy up because they're very energetic creatures, jumping around and searching all day. Now, these monkeys are not very vocal as the howler monkeys. There are 9 species of monkeys, as I mentioned earlier. These are one of the 9, and as I said earlier as well, we only did not see the pocket monkey, which is very small. There are many birds in the Amazon, like this Amazonian kingfisher, one of the largest in the world. This is a kingbird. It's a small little songbird type of bird. There are many species of birds in the Amazon. Some I didn't even know, like this one. I wasn't sure exactly what it was. It's some type of bird of prey, falcon or hawk. That's all I remember. This is a rufescent tiger heron. They are named for their reddish color. There are many species of tiger herons and herons in general in the Amazon, including the capped heron and the tiger heron as seen here. There are also other species of herons, one similar to the great blue heron. This here is a woolly monkey. Woolly monkeys are very unique. They're covered in this thick fur. They're related to this other monkey called the monk-saki monkey, which we also saw. They are known for their thick fur, and that's why they call them woolly monkeys. This is one of the species we saw of woolly monkey. It's the monk-saki. And there's also capuchin monkeys. The capuchin monkeys were one of my favorites because you didn't really have to go far to see them. They're very active as well, and they actually stayed around. We could get some really good photos of them. These guys were foraging right in front of our dining hall, which you will see in a clip soon enough, where they were. Now, the capuchin monkeys normally eat small insects and plants. They often eat berries and other things growing in the Amazon. They will also eat bugs that they find in the ground. That is means they're omnivorous, which means they'll eat plants and meat. And these guys, as you can see, they'll also eat things that fall on the ground that they find around, so they don't always have to climb trees to find. They're very opportunistic feeders. They'll eat basically anything they come across. They're very small, actually. They're actually bigger than the squirrel monkey, but as you can see, they're actually quite small. And as you can see, they always seem to be eating, always seem to be picking up something and trying to put it in their mouth. They actually take small bites, which is very surprising. They usually like to do this so they can taste their food, make sure it's not toxic before they eat it. And they're actually very agile in the trees. You wouldn't think that too much, but they're quick. They can disappear very quickly. And there was actually 5 or 6. They have 5 or 6 in their groups, up to 7. The squirrel monkeys can have up to 200 in their groups, and the howler monkeys usually travel in smaller groups, only about 3 at a time, and that's because they're a larger species of monkey. The smaller monkeys usually have more in a group, because there's safety in numbers, and as you'll see, they actually aren't very scared. This is where we were. Taking our photos of the monkeys, and you'll actually see that they're right in the trees right there. That's where they were. We could get very good photos from our dining hall, which we were in. A lot of the cabins are open, as you can see. Not a lot of creatures come in the cabins except for bugs. They try to stay away from humans. Here is a howler monkey, and this is the many-banded aracari. Aracaris are related to toucans, and they actually will eat plants, but they will also steal the eggs of birds. They are omnivorous because they will eat other birds' eggs, such as the oropendulas, which we saw the nests of earlier. Now these guys are the many-banded. There's a couple of different species of aracaris, as well as the toucans, which are in the same family. And also included in this family are woodpeckers, which they usually don't have too many woodpeckers down there. Only a couple species. These guys are way more common. There was some aracaris near our camp as well, as in the forest itself. And they actually do not make a lot of noise, which was surprising. They will call, but not as much as most people think. You'd think a bird with a huge beak would be noisy, but not too much. The many-banded aracari has yellowish underbelly, and they have the large bill, just like the toucans. They use that to eat fruit, and some scientists theorize that the toucan actually uses the beak for heat transfer, actually cooling the bird down by filling the beak with air, and as warm blood goes over the beak, it cools down. Now, this isn't proven yet, but scientists have very likely theories of this and say it's a very likely possibility, as with thermal imaging would show. With these birds, scientists have done many experiments with thermal imaging, and it shows that this theory would actually most likely be correct. But there's still some research on that. At night, a lot of new creatures come out that you can't see during the day. This is a night vision camera set up by the compost heap where we caught some black vultures eating some of the compost. Black vultures are decomposers of the forest, meaning that they eat things that are decomposing and put nutrients back into them and put them back into the environment. There's also other creatures that are decomposers in the environment. And these creatures are very helpful because they actually create fertile soil for trees to grow in the Amazon. And this is very important because the Amazon rainforest is basically made out of trees. The black vulture is a very unique creature. It eats not just carrion, but rotting fruits, as you can see here. There's also the turkey vulture, which is a native species to here as well. You can see them very far north all the way up into Canada. And so they have a very big range. The black vultures you can also see in the southern states. Another decomposer is the millipede, one of my favorite creatures. Here's a small black and red millipede. Red-banded millipede is another name for these. We also saw another millipede that was being attacked by some ants. This is the black-striped millipede. It's a form of giant millipede. They grow much bigger. They're basically the opposite colors of the red-banded millipede, with larger stripes of red instead of black, but they still have the stripe pattern. But related to the millipede, we'll see a relative later, these are leafcutter ants. Leafcutter ants can often be seen working hard, carrying leaves to and from their colony. Each leaf is exactly the same weight, and they actually don't eat the leaves. They actually collect the leaves, bring them back into their nest, and they tend to the leaves so that they grow a special type of fungus on them, which the ants then eat. The ants actually cultivate these leaves to create a symbiotic relationship with this fungus, so they will have an endless store of food in times of hardships. These guys will also sometimes eat insects around the area, and they are a very intelligent species and will often walk long distances between their nests to get food and to get water as well. There is many species of ants, including the bullet ant, which is painful. This is a walking stick, very small one. This is the Hoatzin. It's a holdover from prehistoric times, actually. You can actually see it's a very unique bird because when it's young it actually has claws because they nest over water, and the young will actually use those claws if they fall out of the nest to climb back up into the tree. These are very ancient species of bird that hasn't evolved for many years. They actually have two stomachs. One actually it uses to ferment food that has bacteria in. The locals call it the stinky turkey because it smells really bad. This guy is the night monkey. They are very unique. They live in trees during the day, tree hollows, and they only come out at night. We were fortunate enough to see this. The common tegu is a non-native species typically found in Australia. They were brought to the Americas as pets and released, and you can actually see them. They actually grow to a smaller size in the Amazon than they would in their natural habitat in Australia. These guys are very big lizards. They're related to the monitor lizards, which include the Komodo dragon and several other large species like the Nile monitor in Africa. These guys actually use the sun to heat themselves up. So this one was sunning on a log, getting its energy because they're cold-blooded. These guys can actually grow slightly bigger than this, but they're actually still small compared to the caimans and the anaconda, which is another species we'll talk about. These are orange-winged parrots. They're quite a noisy bird, and they're called that because underneath their wings when they're flying, you'll see an orange stripe on their wings. Now, parrots are very common in the Amazon. There's also another species of parrot-like bird in the New World parrots, and those are the macaws. There's the scarlet macaws, and the creatures we saw are blue and gold macaws. The natives call macaws guacamayos. That's the native name. Here we have a special species of monkey. This is the red howler monkey. We will see that we'll see a few more clips of those in a bit. These are a very unique species of monkey because they are very loud. And they like to live in the trees, and they're very agile. Now, speaking of trees, this is a kapok tree, one of the largest trees in the Amazon. It is also very unique. This tree was actually the one they used to model the tree in Avatar. It doesn't grow rings like a regular tree, but instead, every year, it grows a root. So if you want to tell the age of a tree, count the roots. Every root is 10 years. So, if it has 5 roots, that's 50 years old. You can tell these trees are very big, as you can see in that last picture. Some even have hollows big enough to fit inside. This is a very old growing tree can live to be over 400 years old. Now these trees are very vital to the Amazon. This tree was located in the Siona village. The Sionas are a group of natives who live in this region of Ecuador. Here you can see them gathering a plant called yucca. It's actually the root of a type of small tree. They use this in different recipes, especially pan de yucca, which is a type of bread. This bread, we'll show you the process of how they make it. Right now they collect it. Their most vital tool is a machete, because they can use that to cut the plants down to the exact size that they will need. What they don't need, they will plant later and will grow into a whole new tree. This is very useful because the natives do not usually go outside of their village. The village is surprisingly big, and most of the people there actually speak Spanish and the native language as well. Several also speak English too. Now, there are 5 tribes in the Cuyabeno Reserve. This one is famous for some of their cooking, like panda yuca. There's other tribes, such as the tribe this man is from. Right here is he is collecting palm heart, which is another useful product. His tribe is actually famous for making shrunken heads. They don't use humans anymore, but now they make them out of animal heads as well. But this is a very interesting thing that they do, is collect palm hearts as well. Usually the palm trees, as you can see here, have ants on them as well, because the ants also find this palm tree useful, because it contains lots of nutrients. Now here you will strip down the palm to the very last inner branch. This is where the palm heart resides. It is actually edible, and many people eat this. It is actually very sweet. Here is the process of making panda yuca. First, you have to grind it up. This is the root after it's been washed thoroughly. They wash the root very thoroughly because it can contain toxins. After that, they put it through a homemade device made out of fabric from trees, and then they twirl it around, removing all of the water. This water may have absorbed some of the toxins, so it is a very vital step. Then, they use pans that are made out of clay from the bottom of the lagoon, and this clay can only be collected in the dry season when the lagoon is exposed. They do this, and then they flatten it. It has to be very flat for it to be able to cook properly. Now, as they do this, it starts to cook. As it is cooking, they will periodically take a homemade bowl, and this is what they use to flatten it as well as keep it separate from the pan. They use useful tools all made by themselves that they can use for almost anything. Here is a type of leaf that they actually made out of some materials in the woods. They actually use that to keep that from sticking to the pan. They will also use a bowl, keep the bread to be flat. It's kind of like a flat bread. And they will also use that to form it together so it all sticks into one piece. This is kind of like kneading in a bakery. This will keep the bread in one piece, and as you can see, it molds together very well. When the bread is ready, it is cut a little bit more, then flattened a little more to make sure it is cooked all the way through. This bread will need to be flipped only once to do the other side, and that is very interesting because a lot of breads need a long time to cook. But since we use fire here, they use the fire very hot, and it is actually a pretty quick process. Cooking this bread takes about 3 to 5 minutes. It's actually very short. They don't use an oven, which is very surprising. And it's actually a very quick process. And as you can see, they use that as a knife also, and sort of like a spatula. You can see the smoke actually changes color as it rises from the bread when it's about ready. That's when you know to flip. Now you can see it's almost done. You can see it's one piece. It's very well together. And this is not made of wheat. It's actually made out of a ground up plant root, which is very surprising. After this, you can see the clay that they use from the bottom of the lake. Now, here, we also learned about blowguns. They use blowguns in this area, many of the tribes do, and we got to practice with it. It was very interesting. They use poison from the yucca plant as well. The leaves are actually poisonous. They use that for poison instead of frogs now. Here we are. We also took a hike through the jungle that night, or that day, which was very interesting. We got to see lots of bugs. Here you can see a three-toed sloth. The sloth is the slowest animal in the world, and they're also a mammal. And they are herbivores, so they eat exclusively plants. The sloth actually is very mythological in the area. There's a creature called the Mapinguari, which happens to be distinct looking like one of the ancestors of the sloth, known as the ground sloth. And they actually did live in South America, North America, and parts of Europe during the Ice Age. And these ground sloths were actually carnivores and herbivores, mostly herbivores though. and they had huge long claws, just like sloths today, except they use them more like weapons to defend themselves. Sloths today don't really need to defend themselves because they sleep most of the day. The rest of the day they're in trees eating or sleeping, and they will actually grow algae on their fur sometimes. This actually will help with camouflage, so it actually is sort of like a symbiotic relationship with the algae getting a ride and being able to spread, with the sloth actually being camouflaged against predators like harpy eagles and other creatures that might actually try to attempt to attack a sloth. And the sloth, as they're fully grown, have less predators. They will occasionally be attacked, though, by larger creatures. Here is an anaconda, green anaconda, the largest snake in the world. They are one of the creatures that will attack sloths. We got to get up and close with a couple, and they are actually very green colored, and they are very good at swimming, and they are constrictors, so they constrict their prey, causing asphyxiation as death, and they are very good swimmers. Here they are sunning themselves. We also saw a couple turtles that were sunning themselves because they're cold-blooded animals, reptiles to be exact. And then, later on, we trekked through the swamp. Not all rainforest is actually covered in trees, but here they have a special type of palm frond. You can see the palm leaf there, and they'll actually use these to make darts for the Siona blowguns, and some other tribes' blowguns will actually use these. They actually use these because they are not very fragile, so they can weave them together, but they're also not very heavy, so they can go a long distance, and they're a very versatile material, and they're very easily found. They grow in the swamp and all over the forest in different parts. This is a very interesting swamp because there's a lot of bugs around, and you can also find poison arrow frogs in the swamp, which are very unique to this area. A lot of creatures also live in the trees and palms as well, like this tree rat. This tree rat is very interesting. It's a small little rodent that actually lives in trees and looks like a prairie dog or rat of some sort. And it actually lives inside hollows of trees like a squirrel or a flying squirrel. They also are very unique. These are the ruby poison arrow frog, one of the second or third most poisonous species of frog in the poison arrow frog family. The number one is Phyllobates terribilis in Latin, which means terrible frog. Its common name is the golden poison arrow frog, which is not native to Ecuador, and is actually an endangered species in other parts of the world, where it is found. These guys are sometimes called the Ecuadorian flag frog because their coloration includes red, yellow, and blue, the colors of the stripes on the Ecuadorian flag, and also on the Colombian flag. But these are more native to Ecuador. They often don't see them in Colombia. They don't make very much sound, which is surprising, except when it's mating season. They are also very small. As you can see, this one is on a palm frond leaf, so it uses a lot of zoom to get in close to them. The second smallest frog we've probably seen. There's one that is smaller, which we'll see later, is really small. These guys actually use their colors as a warning to predators that would eat these frogs. And the poison is actually toxic only if you ingest it or if it gets into a vein or artery. And other than that, it's not poisonous, so you can actually handle this frog. It is a very good idea to wash your hands very thoroughly because the poison can be left on your hands and absorbed into food. This frog can kill 3 people at any given time and uses color as a warning for that. And these frogs are very brightly colored. Almost all poison arrow frogs are, except some are a little more dull, like the other species we saw. These ones are brightly colored, but other ones not so much. They do all have some sort of warning to predators, though. Like this one that we also saw. This is the 2-lined poison arrow frog. It has 2 yellow stripes along its back, and this serves as a warning that they are a poisonous species and not to eat them. This is a very unique species because they're not very brightly colored. They actually look like a normal frog besides with the yellow stripes. And they actually blend in very good. They're also very small. As you can see, those are very small leaves on the ground, but it fits in with them. There's another twig there too, and you can see the moss next to it. That shows you its relative size. There we are, and you can kind of see. And right here, we are looking at the leaf toad. This toad actually looks kind of like a leaf, as you can see by its flattened head. It has one stripe running down it, which resembles the vein of a leaf. They actually use this as very well camouflaged. They're also small, like the poison frogs, a little bit bigger. As you can see, they look just like a leaf. And most people would just walk by without noticing them. Same with predators would also go by, and also their prey, such as insects, would also walk by, and they would be able to catch them without ever knowing it was there. There is one frog that's smaller than the poison arrow frog. This frog is very, very small, as you can see, and you'll see just how small we're talking. They are less than the size of a human pinky, as you will see. They are called they're a small leaf frog, as you can see. Very, very small, smaller than the pinky nail. That is the smallest frog in Ecuador that you will see. This isn't a young, this is fully grown as well. They do not grow very bigger than this. This is about the maximum size. They actually use this to their advantage, being able to hide from predators and prey. They eat small things like ants, actually. Speaking of ants, here's the relative of an ant, a termite. They're very common in the Amazon, building nests on the ground. You will also see wasp nest and ant nest in the trees, and you can tell each one by the shape. The wasps are smaller, more round. The termites are always on the ground, and the ants, they actually have elongated oval nests, and the hole is always at the top of the ants. Termites are very defensive. You can see the soldiers here. They have the red head that stick out and the big jaws. They also use those jaws for carrying leaves. This is a red-capped cardinal, which is surprising. We saw them at night. These ones are resting in a tree, and they are very unique because their heads stick out. They kind of resemble a cardinal here, except for the body. We have cardinals around the United States as well. And there are also moths, similar to ones we have around here. This is also a type of swallowtail, like the ones we have here, not yellow. This is a blue-striped swallowtail. They have a tiger pattern, a little bit like the tiger swallowtails around here, except they do not have a yellowish body, but very similar species. Here we have a parasitic fungus that actually gets inside of an insect, and you see that orange thing? That actually is the spore of the fungus. The fungus will grow inside the insect and eventually take over the insect's mind, and eventually break out where it finds a suitable place, and eventually grow the insect using it as nutrients. You'll actually take control of the insect's brain to help it find a suitable location for the fungus to grow. As you can see here, the fungus can grow quite big. It's actually surprising. It's kind of like a antler, deer antler. But it doesn't just affect ants, it also affects creatures like the cicada and grasshoppers, and basically all kinds of insects, including termites as well. Now, in the Amazon, there's a lot of familiar species as well, such as this cormorant. We have cormorants here as well. There's also many other species that are similar to the area that we also have in the area. These are a type of bat that we have in North America as well. They are called free-tailed bats, and here they actually live on the underside of a tree. Those little blips are bats. They usually hang out in groups, and when they sense danger, they'll be able to drop quickly and fly. They usually hang right above water, where there's less predators, but they have to be careful because there is fish and stuff in the water below them. Here we have the elusive Amazon river dolphin. Caught a couple times. We got to see them. They are a very unique species. They're called botos in Brazil, and they are a very magical species. There's a lot of legend surrounding them. This is one of my photos. They are very quick and easy to miss. They are actually pink depending on how well they're eating. This is a bulldog ant. They actually use these as stitches, the natives do, to close up wounds. They're huge. And they have these huge jaws. Those are usually used for defense. Here we have the scorpion spider, as the natives call it. It's called whip spider in America. They have these long whip-like extensions on their third pair of legs, and they have a pretty nasty jaw. There's also some of these in southern North America, areas like Texas and very far south in Mexico. Here is an orb weaver. We also have those around here. These ones in the Amazon can grow quite big and have some startling colors. But one of the largest spiders is the tarantula. Here we have a cobalt tarantula. These guys are very big, but the tarantulas are harmless to humans, except they do have hairs on the back of their bottom that will actually cause irritation if breathed in. These ones, this is a defensive posture, raising the front legs. These guys are actually will back into a hole and do this to expose their fangs. They'll scare predators off most of the time. There are ground-dwelling spiders, but there's also a lot of spiders that build webs to capture their prey. Here we can see a spider, a type of orb weaver, small one, and they will actually catch small insects such as grasshoppers and small butterflies that fly into their nets. As you can see, this one has caught in a fly. Some do build huge webs, and some will actually catch bats, surprisingly. Their webs are very strong. As you can see, they're very fast in using silk to wrap up their prey. This will actually keep it stored for later. Spiders are a very ingenious species, and sometimes their webs can be strong as steel per ounce, and this is very interesting. Some actually are used to make makeshift bulletproof vests by the Indians, which is very useful because they actually are made of biodegradable material. So after they're done using it, it'll just be put back and the wild will reabsorb it, because it is made out of material that will dissolve a bit in water. And there you go. Here we have a horseman spider, or huntsman spider. They are big, but not dangerous. They're ground-dwelling spiders, but they are related to one of the most dangerous spiders, and the only poisonous one to humans in the area, which is called the banana spider, which you'll see in a little bit. These guys are very interesting, though, because they're just a large spider, and they call them wolf spiders around here. They're related to those as well. They have long front legs and short, stout back legs, and this is because they'll usually jump to catch their prey. So like a jumping spider, but not as magnificent as a jumper. They also are related to the banana spider, shown here. These are poisonous to humans. They are very dangerous. They have 8 eyes, like all spiders, and 8 legs, like all spiders. And their fangs are small, definitely smaller than a tarantula, but more deadly. This is the Amazonian giant centipede, Scolopendra gigantea. It's actually the largest in the world, and is sometimes called the red-headed centipede, or also known as the Venezuelan giant centipede, where they are common in Venezuela. These guys are actually poisonous. They can hurt you, and if bitten enough times, it is thought that they can kill small or unhealthy humans. But these ones are still quite painful even when they're young, even if they're not that poisonous. But their fangs are quite painful. They do have very painful legs as well. They're kind of like daggers, as some people describe. And they'll actually leave small welts on your skin sometimes when they're big enough. And as you can see, they're mostly one of the quicker than millipedes. There's a lot of caterpillars in the Amazon as well. These ones actually stick together in a group to look larger. At night, we also saw several species of frog, like this tree frog. There's a lot of species of tree frog in the Amazon. This was our night walk with bugs, but you also see lots of other species at night. This is a tree frog, one of the smaller species. There's a lot larger species as well. There's also some small species of toads you can see at night. You can see the pupils are actually shaped sort of like our goats. This actually allows them to see well in low light and also in three dimensions, just like a human. Rectangular pupils allow three-dimensional sight. And this is called a katydid. cicada. These are related to grasshoppers. There's a species out here actually called the spiny lobster. It's katydid, and it looks kind of like a weta, which are New Zealand crickets. And they are very unique because they call them lobsters, even though they do not have claws. They just resemble a lobster, sort of. This is a small one. You can see here they have long antennas, like a lobster, and they have these spiny legs, kind of like a lobster. And they do resemble more like a cricket, though, their body shape. They have these tiny vestigial wings on the back, you can see. And they can actually jump, not as far as some crickets, but they can actually jump, just like others. And they actually make a lot of noise, these crickets and cicadas. And they're actually one of the loudest noises you can hear on the Amazon at night, louder than some species of birds. Here's a species of grasshopper with transparent wings. You can see it is very unique. The grasshoppers do not make as much noise as cicadas, but will make noise using their back legs, rubbing along their wings. They have very long antennas because they have a lot of area in the Amazon to cover, so they need to find their food and protect predators. This is a leaf insect. You can see it has wings just like a leaf. It even has a hole in it, which resembles a leaf. Those holes actually are natural in the bug. They don't affect the bug at all. The bug actually purposely makes them or keeps them there. And you can see they're related to grasshoppers. They jump pretty far, as you can see that. They can also fly. Here's one of the things I found at the beginning of our search. It's a rhinoceros beetle. The rhinoceros beetle is related to many species of beetle. There are over 200 beetles in this family, the Cleopteras. These are the beetle family. And they have a long horn, and their closest relative, you might think only lives in Africa and Egypt, but you can also find the Amazon rainforest. We are the first ones actually to see one on the reserve. It's the dung beetle. We were the first group to ever see dung beetles on the reserve, our guide told us. And they have never seen them before, but these are green dung beetles. They have a very iridescent shell that reflects sunlight, and they usually travel in groups. And this is pig dung they're rolling. They actually roll it back into their, they dig holes in the ground where they live. There was also some ants around trying to feed on the dung as well. The ants in the Amazon, each one has a different amount of bite and sting strength. There's one called the bullet ant, which is very, very powerful. You do not want to get bit by one of those because they call them the bullet ant because it feels like getting shot with a bullet. Now in the Amazon, you don't always know what you're going to see. Some of these birds were unidentified. For a while, we had to look them up. Some of our guides didn't even know. There were a couple songbirds we saw, a couple other species of birds that we didn't really know. This is one of the lessons you learn in the Amazon. You never really know what you're going to see. You could see a wide variety of things. You might see nothing. You could go for a week looking for one creature and see every creature but that creature. And then you could go looking for something else and only see that creature that you're looking for before. Now, there are many lessons to be learned from the Amazon. It's a very large and mysterious place. We are still exploring it. Just like the depths of the ocean, it is largely unexplored. We do not know all the species within the rainforest, and we do not know all the values of these species as well. Some of these species are newly discovered, and we're discovering new ones almost every day. The Amazon is big, and we'll still make discoveries, and I hope we continue to make progress in exploring the Amazon. We keep learning about indigenous peoples as well as ourselves as we explore the Amazon. But one thing you can be sure of in the Amazon is you never know what you'll see, and every time you go, you might be there for a little bit, but you'll see stuff around every corner, and you might not even know it was there.